All right, we've got the recording going here. So just a heads up to everyone that this presentation is being recorded. So it'll be available for you if you want to review it. And we also make it available to other reviewers if they aren't able to attend today. I'll just say right off the top, if you've already attended one of these trainings, you don't have to do it again. We only require you come to one. So if you've already done one, you can actually have your time back this morning. But if this is your first one, we're glad you're here. Thank you for coming. We got a few more folks coming in. We'll get started in another maybe minute or so. I just want to give everybody time as people are logging on to get into the room. All right, it looks like we've gotten almost everybody in. If you've just logged in, thank you for joining us. Really excited to have everybody here today and appreciate you making time for this training. I will go ahead and get started. And my name is Cord Bucher. I'm the Deputy Director here at Youth Development Oregon. This training presentation is being recorded. If you need to review this, you'll be able to access this on our website, and we'll make this available to other reviewers who are not able to attend today. And just a reminder for folks just joining, if you've already attended one of these trainings, you don't need to attend this one. You only have to attend one, and then you can review for any of our 3 RFAs. Today, we're going to be talking about the 25-27 Community Investment Grant application. This RFA just closed, and we really appreciate all of you volunteering as grant evaluators. And can we go to the next slide, please? Here's an overview of what we're going to cover today. We'll do some housekeeping, talk a little bit about Youth Development Oregon. We'll provide an overview of this particular RFA, what the purpose of this grant is. We'll give you some guidelines and general concepts to help you with evaluation. We'll talk a little bit about what's in the application, how to score it, how to leave comments. We'll walk you through how SM Apply, which is the platform we use for reviews, works. And we'll, of course, try to answer your questions throughout the presentation. Can we jump to the next slide, please? One of the things that we're doing in these presentations that might be a little bit unique is we're using the Q&A function of Zoom. You should see both a chat icon down on the bottom toolbar as well as a Q&A button. The Q&A, it looks a bit different on mine. It either is going to look like 2 little speech bubbles. Mine looks like a speech bubble with a question mark in it. They both work the same way. So during this presentation, we ask that you keep your microphone muted and you enter your questions or comments into that Q&A function. The chat is available if you have technical problems. If you're not seeing these buttons, for example, you could send us a message in the chat. We have several folks monitoring that. And then we'll also keep an eye on the Q&A and answer the questions there periodically. Can we go to the next slide, please? So you can see here kind of a quick explanation of how this Q&A works. Sorry, I was going to try to close my email so it doesn't keep dinging while I'm doing this presentation. So the upvote feature is a way that you can emphasize a question. If you see something asked that you want to make sure we answer, you can use that thumbs up button there. You can add a comment. Of course, you can add questions in here, and then you can toggle between seeing all the questions that have been submitted and the questions just that you've entered. If you've entered a question, it'll show up on a separate tab there. And what this does is it allows you to see what everyone's got on their mind. You can emphasize the things they're asking. We will either answer the questions live in the presentation or we'll answer them in text within the Q&A, or maybe both. So again, the Q&A is open and the chat is there if you have any technical problems. Next slide, please. Before we get into it, we like to try to answer some questions right off the bat that a lot of people have coming in. And so I'll quickly talk about some of the things that you might be wondering about this process. So how do you receive applications to evaluate? So all the reviews are completed within SM Apply, which is a web-based application and review portal that we use. We'll provide some instructions later in the presentation on how that works. You have approximately 3 weeks from the time that we assign applications to get your reviews completed. We plan to add assignments around July 28th, and all scoring should be completed by August 18th. We estimate each evaluator will have about 8 to 12 applications to score. We estimate that takes about 6 to 10 hours total. Normally, what happens is after you do a few, you get the hang of it and it goes a little bit more quickly. All evaluation is completed individually. You're doing this on your own, and there are not any additional meetings required. For some of you who've been involved in the past, we had evaluator tabulation meetings where we asked you to come together with other reviewers where you reviewed the same applications, and we're not doing that this year. So you're going to receive a unique set of applications that will be assigned to you, and you'll be completing those on your own time. Your scores and comments are made available to applicants. We'll talk about this in the presentation, but something that we do is make all scores and comments available to anyone who requests them after the RFA after the awards are announced. There is a form where you'll be able to submit questions to us during the process. So we're going to give you contact information for our single point of contact. That's the person in procurement who oversees our RFA processes. But there's also a form for evaluators. If you have a question, a technical issue, or something about the evaluation, there'll be a place you can submit a question where multiple folks are monitoring so we can get back to you quickly and help resolve it. And a question that had come up in a previous presentation, what does the award look like for these grants? So the limit for awards ranges from $100,000 to $300,000 for a 2-year grant. But as reviewers, you're not reviewing the budget, you're not looking at the funding requested, or you're not going to know even what the amount of funding requested for the grant is. We exclude that from what's being evaluated in the application. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a list of the staff who have been doing the work behind the scenes supporting these 3 RFAs. This is the third of 3 that we've launched this spring to fund grants for 25-27. So a number of these folks, and maybe all these folks are here, and you're going to hear from a number of us in today's presentation. So I think I saw Brian here. Brian, do you want to jump in for a moment and say anything? Brian, our director, is here in the training. Hey, Brian.
Thanks, Cord. Yeah, just many thanks to the team and staff for all the hard work on pulling this together, and big thanks to all the volunteer evaluators. We really appreciate your taking the time out to look at our applications, spend time in this training, just be engaged and involved. Just deep appreciation to all of you for all you're doing, ultimately supporting the broader kind of work around youth development. So thanks so much. Thanks, Cord.
Thank you, Brian. Next slide, please. The single point of contact. Bethany Moreland is ODE Senior Contracting Officer, and she is the single point of contact for this RFA. So applicants are instructed to only contact Bethany with any questions. Likewise, if you need to email someone during the evaluation process, you can reach out directly to Bethany at the email address shown here. You'll also, again, have a form where you can submit questions, and that's where we can also see the questions and make sure that either Bethany or one of the staff help you with it, whether it be about SM Apply or the evaluation process. Next slide, please. So the mission of Youth Development Oregon is to align systems and invest in communities to ensure equitable and effective services for youth ages 6 through 24. Throughout Oregon and tribal nations, we support educational and career success, disrupt youth crime and violence, and affirm youth strengths and safety. And our vision is that all of Oregon's youth have the opportunity to thrive and achieve their full potential. And we do this work and seek to fulfill this mission in part through our grant programs. And so we again appreciate you being part of our mission and our vision. And if we can go to the next slide, I am going to pass it over to my colleague Abraham Magana, who is going to talk to you about this community investment grant.
Thank you, Cord. Yes, Abraham Magana. I'm a grant manager and operations analyst with YDO here. And yeah, I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on what we call the community investment grant, or sometimes we refer to as CI grants. So some of the goals around the community investment grant are serving youth ages 6 to 19, increasing youth engagement in and connection to school and community, enhance academic achievement and support educational attainment, reduce barriers, and support access to service that improves youth educational outcomes, connection, and wellness. Increase youth participation in safe and welcoming out of school time programming and services with positive adult role models, and provide services to youth in a manner that supports educational success, reduces high risk behaviors, improves well being, and is integrated, measurable, and accountable. Next slide, please. And here's kind of the scope, if you will, of the grant. And I'll give some examples of what these kind of mean within the context of the grant. So, academic enrichment and support. This is something as simple as after school tutoring, right? Could be an example of this, right? The next one is out of school activities and positive youth development. Again, this could be activities that take place after schools, or it can happen even during the periods of when kids are in spring break, for example, and you're developing programming or activities where youth can participate in, right? Barrier removal and case management. You may have a youth who's interested in going out for sports or participating in a sport, but they may not have the equipment necessary, right? Well, we can provide some funding around that, right? Or case management. They may have other barriers that are more serious, and you help connect them to those resources and or services. Access. Mentoring and conflict resolution. Again, having a positive adult role model, right, that helps coach a youth, perhaps, right, navigate any conflicts a youth may have and how to take care of them, how to address them in a safe and positive way. Youth work and post-secondary exploration. The idea behind this is getting youth exposed to what work and or career or employment means. What's that exactly mean? For example, resume writing, right? Or just finding out about careers, informational job interviews, and or visiting universities and colleges, right? Just exposing them to say, what does it take? What do I need? Or what's out there? Next, you see here mental health and wellness support. Now, when I talk about mental health and wellness support in this context, I'm really talking about counseling, right? Sometimes when, as I mentioned previous, out of school activities, sometimes people say, well, we're going to go out for a hike and how that reduces, and it does. But in this context, I'm talking more around one-on-one and or therapy style and or counseling specific for the youth, right? And the last one, essential skills for youth success. The way I like to think of this, and I would put this kind of in quotation marks, is what we call adulting, right? Getting youth ready for what that means. Creating a schedule, knowing what you have to do. What are your responsibilities? Okay, where do I have to save money so I can make rent, pay for food, pay utilities, et cetera, et cetera. So all these things that I think youth need to know before they kind of make that transition or are going to get ready to make that transition to adulthood. That's what we mean by essential skills for youth success. Next slide. And I think we pause here if anyone has any questions.
Check the Q&A. We have no questions yet, Abe.
Oh, okay. And I think from here, do I pass it? Is it Bethany who's up next? Or is it somebody else?
Yeah,
It
looks like
is
Bethany
me.
is up next.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
in fact. I'm Bethany Moreland. As previously mentioned, I am the procurement specialist assigned to all three of YDD's RFAs this year, and specifically the single point of contact, again, for all three RFAs. So I'm just going to talk about conflict of interest, and then a little bit more about what will be required of you going forward. So, an important thing to note is that the conflict of interest from the perspective of the state is really looking at financial interest. So, we're looking at an actual or potential conflict to an official being an evaluator in this context, a relative of an official, or a business in which the official or the relative of the official is associated. And this can be a positive or a negative impact that would potentially or actually um, actualize if you evaluated one of these applications. So the keywords here are would versus could on actual versus potential. But again, given that evaluators in this space are knowledgeable and often working in similar fields, it's not unusual for you to know an applicant, know the work that they do, possibly have previous experience working with them. But really, from the state's perspective, we're really looking at financial impact, positive or negative, to you or a relative of yours, or a business of yours or your relative. Um, so I'm going to be sending out a conflict of interest form. Please read through that carefully. I'm going to go over which parts you need to fill out, but you're going to return that to me. And those must be signed and dated prior to evaluating applications. Next slide, please. So this specifically is what on the right is what the final page of the conflict of interest form looks like. When you receive the form, it's going to be titled first name, last name, CI conflict of interest form. Please save as and change that titling to reflect your first name and last name. And then on that document, the pages 1 through 3 go over the rules and expectations around conflict of interest. Pages 4 through 7 is a list of all of the applicants from whom we've received applications for CI. And the final page, page 8, is the attestation and signatures section. So on the right is just a screenshot of a filled out version of that final page. Note that there are 2 different check boxes you will need to complete. So there's the first one that says you've read it and you understand the ORSs that are listed earlier in the document. And then the second portion is certifying whether or not you have an actual potential or no conflict of interest. And then there's additional instructions if you do have an actual or potential conflict of interest. If there's anything you're unsure about, you can absolutely reach out to me for help or advice. You can list it as a potential conflict of interest, and we can have a conversation around that. Sometimes there might not be an actual conflict of interest, but perhaps an evaluator doesn't feel like they could evaluate an application unbiasedly, and that is valid. So we can have a conversation about that, and we will make sure that that is noted on our end so that those applications aren't assigned to you. And then in the final section, please do make sure that that is filled out in its entirety. You'll have your signature, your title, the date, your printed name, and your phone number. And then again, my email is listed there, but it will come through as an email from me. Next slide, please. So a few things to keep in mind as you're evaluating. There's a few things that evaluators are prohibited from doing. You should not have contact with any potential applicants during any part of the evaluation process. And when I say that, I'm speaking specifically in regards to the RFA. If you have contact with an applicant in your day-to-day job, so long as you are not discussing the RFA, not discussing the evaluation process, that's permissible, of course. But please do refrain from discussing any part of the evaluation process. If an applicant contacts you about the RFA, please do contact me immediately. The next bullet is do not conduct independent research like internet searching, including opening hyperlinks embedded in the application responses as a response to the evaluation questions within the applications, unless they are required and directed within the RFA and the review portal. Note that this RFA, as well as the other 2 for YDD in these rounds, do allow applicants to reference credible sources to support their responses. That should be a link. If there's a link, it should be to support their response, not to supplement their response. So if you do click on something, you open it up and it is a whole bunch of additional text and not just say reference to data, then please do ignore that. In the RFA, YDD specifically lists their own website as a credible source that applicants could reference in their applications. But obviously, if you're a new applicant, you might need to reference something other than the data that YDD has. So again, the key here is that it should support, not supplement, their responses. Next slide, please. Please refrain from using personal knowledge about an applicant. We understand and we acknowledge that a lot of you are working in the field closely with applicants doing this work. But please do set that information aside, and you're really going to focus on what they have put in their responses to the evaluation questions. And then additionally, please refrain from contact with not only the applicants, but the evaluators, stakeholders, media, and any other person outside of specified OD and YDO staff directly involved in supporting the evaluation process to discuss the application or process. Next slide, please. All right, Ryan, I saw there was a question, but there was one other thing I want to get to before we go to the questions. I do want to clarify that evaluator names are in practice not shared with applicants. Applicants have the right to request their scores and their comments from the evaluators, but we do switch that out. We remove your name and make it anonymous. So it'll say evaluator 1, evaluator 2, evaluator 3. But note that in the event of a public records request, if it is requested that specifically the names of grant evaluators, we would be compelled to share that information. And all applicants, both awarded and unsuccessful, have an opportunity to get feedback directly from YDO staff after the award notifications go out. But again, evaluative information is not disclosed during that process. And let's go ahead with questions. I saw there was some potentially some conflict of interest questions.
Yes, a question in the chat, Bethany. So is the conflict of interest form specific for each application? And does the evaluator need to complete one for each application they evaluate, or does the single form cover all of the applications?
It's one single form per RFA. So if you are evaluating in any of the other RFAs, you still will need a new one for community investment, but not one per application. So within this conflict of interest form I will send out, it has the entirety of a list of all of the applicants that have applied for CI, and you will just identify if any within that list are potential or actual conflicts within that one document. So you only need to do it once.
Great. And then there was another question in the Q&A. If our organization applied, can I still be an evaluator? I would just say that it is a conflict of interest and would not review our own application, but I think you can take this from there, Bethany.
Yeah. Right off the bat, I would say no, that's a conflict of interest because there is financial benefit to your business of somebody receiving or not receiving a grant. However, if I'm missing any information and you want to have an additional conversation about that, we can do so via email.
Yeah, I know that we've got folks who have applied in the other RFAs who may be evaluators if they are not an applicant in this RFA. So if, for example, you had applied in the Reengagement Opportunity Grant and you do not have an application in community investments, that's okay. But if we've assigned someone who has an application in community investments, can you reach out to you can reach out to Bethany and we can figure that out and we'll determine what to do there. All right, thanks. I think that's all the questions that we have right now. So I believe Bethany, maybe now it goes over to Bill.
Good morning. I'm Bill Hansel, grant manager with YDO and data lead. We are now going to start covering the specifics of evaluation and then move into the rubric and scoring examples. So we're going to cover a few general concepts of evaluation. You can see them here on the slide, and we will go over them in greater detail. Next slide, please. The first of these important concepts is that each evaluation item or question, and there are 5 in the CI application, are scored individually as standalone items and not the application as a whole. That is, each item is scored as if it were the only item being evaluated, and each score is based on the response to the specific item. Information provided in other evaluation items i.e. the scored items, shall not be considered in determining a score for the response under question. Each item is scored independently, and the standalone evaluation item scores are summed to produce the application score. Next slide, please. The second important concept is that each evaluation item is scored against the rubric only and not against responses from other applications. That is, evaluations items are not scored on a curve. For example, the best response for an evaluation item from assigned applications is not automatically awarded a 10. The score is awarded based on the rubric, not the relative standing within the applications assigned. The best response for an evaluation item may earn any of the possible scores. It all depends on the quality of the applications that have been randomly assigned. Similarly, it is possible that all scores for a single evaluation item and all scores for all evaluation items are similar. As long as the rubric is being followed, that is not something to be concerned with. It simply indicates that all assigned applications were of similar quality, whether that is high, medium, or low. Next slide, please. The final important concept is that the rubric and rubric guidance are guides and can be thought of as a compass rather than a GPS. They provide a direction rather than a direct route, and the route is less important than the destination. The rubric is intended to guide evaluators to the same destination. The exact route is up to the evaluator. You as evaluator must consider both objective and subjective information in the response and use the rubric to determine a score. And this is because there is no one-size-fits-all perfect project. So there is a need for evaluators to evaluate the wide-ranging services and programs in these proposals within the context of the RFA goals, community, and population served. Any questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll keep moving. We're now going to go over the evaluation items that you will see, and these are the questions that were answered by the applicants. We will
Hey,
move
Bill,
quickly. Yes.
we've actually just gotten in, we got a question uh, pertaining to what you just covered, so I wanted to pause you before we continued. So the question is, going back to the principles or the evaluation uh, guidelines you
General
shared,
concepts.
concept number one, does that mean that reviewers cannot use context provided about the organization in previous answers to clearly understand the answer they provided?
That is correct. So applicants have been instructed to answer each item as a whole. And that means that, for example, stuff like see question number one, if you're on question number two, that wouldn't be permissible. So basically, if you're pulling in or tempted to pull in information from another question, don't. Another way to think about it would be if you're just looking at the question, the evaluation item, and so it should be a self-contained answer.
Hey, Bill and Cord, can I
Yes.
jump in just real quick? So, thank you for clarifying that, Bill. Paul Sell, Associate Director at Youth Development Oregon. There is some additional context that is an unscored information around. I believe it's in one of the tasks, task 4 in this application, that is unscored, and it provides an executive summary of the project, an organization description, so it's just kind of broader context of the organization description, as well as a broader context of community description. Abe, I saw your head nodding, so I'm assuming I got the 3 right. Yes?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. All right, so those are questions that you will review before you read. And I saw Sally's thumbs up, so thank you. Those are questions that can apply a little additional context. We've been seeing some people like defining an acronym in those non-scored items, so that's important to note within that. So, Bethany, anything to add on those unscored items? Perfect. Thank you.
All right, next slide, please. Thank you for your questions. Evaluation item has to do with project implementation and capacity, and we're going to move through these evaluation items quickly. But as we do so, please pay attention, and also as you're evaluating, to the word count, word limit, and points possible for each question. Um, And so please do note that each evaluation item deals with the project being proposed. Each question has word limits. If the applicant is unable to submit the answer if it has gone over the word count. So you're not responsible for tracking the word count at all. And because of this, if an answer is truncated or it looks like it was just abruptly stopped, the applicant themselves chose to submit it that way. It wasn't an automatic override by the submission portal. So they have been able to, they would not be able to submit the response if it was over the questions, I mean, the word count. Next slide, please. Evaluation item number 2 is project youth population and service area, 800 word limit, 25 points. Next slide, please. Evaluation item number 3 is project services and activities. This is 1,000 word limit and our highest point total at 30 points. Evaluation item number 4 deals with project equity and access. It's a 600 word limit, 20 points. Next slide, please. And the final item is community partnerships and support. This is a 500 word limit and 15 points. Next slide, please. Here is an actual image of the rubric. We'll go over it in greater detail in the following slides. Next slide, please. There are 10 possible scores. You can see them outlined here, 1 through 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. Next slide, please. The 10 possible scores are divided into 5 equal categories. You can see them again boxed in red. Exemplary is 9 and 10. Very good is an 8 and 7. Good is a 6 or 5. Fair includes scores of 4 and 3. And inadequate includes scores of 2 and 1. Next slide, please. The 5 equal categories are further divided into 3 subcategories. You can see them over here on the right, the different colors. Complete includes the exemplary and very good categories. Mostly complete includes the good category. And incomplete includes the fair and inadequate categories. Next slide, please. We're now going to go through a scoring example using the rubric. The following slide provides an example of how to use the rubric. So step 1 is to review the CI goals and applicant background information. This is the piece that Paul was talking about earlier. Executive summary, organization description, and population served. And you can review these before evaluating the applications. We recommend evaluating one application at a time. And this is because that's really how SMA is, or SurveyMonkey Apply is set up to do it. If you haven't reviewed one before using SMA, we get feedback that it's a pretty neat program in that it's a dual split screen. So you see the application on one side and the responses and your ability to provide a score on the other part of the slide. Screen. Next slide, please. Now, scoring example again, these are steps 2 through 5. We'll go over them in greater detail, but this is just a slide where you can see them all at once. Next slide, please. So read the evaluation item, including numbered component parts, and then the response. Next slide, please. Scoring, the step 3 is to assess the level of completeness and determine one of the 3 subcategories. So that you'll go read it, determine whether or not it was complete, which is the green. All numbered component parts of the item are addressed. Mostly complete is defined as the majority of the numbered component items are addressed, but not all. And incomplete is the majority of the numbered component items are not addressed. Next slide, please. The next step is to assess the quality of the response based on the category criteria and determine a category. So in step 3, you decided whether or not it was complete or mostly complete or incomplete. And now within those subcategories, you determine the category, either exemplary, very good, good, fair, or inadequate. And remember that based on the assessed quality of the response, the category can be moved downward, but not upward. Next slide, please. The final determination will be to choose one of the scores. So now you've gone through, you landed on, say, for example, that it's complete. You've now assessed the category and think it's very good, for example, and now you would choose between the 8 and 7. Next slide, please. So the concept of completeness is not intended to be the sole criteria for the score. Rather, it is intended to serve as an initial guide and minimum qualification for a category determination. Next slide, please. Other concepts found in the category criteria, such as thoroughness, expertise, understanding, knowledge, and ability, are intended to capture the quality of the response. And these concepts are defined in the criteria definition sections of the rubric guidance document, which you'll be provided at a later time. Next slide, please. Both the quality and completeness of the response are critical to consider in determining a score. If a response is not complete, the highest score it can receive is a 6. But just because it is complete does not automatically mean a score of 7 or more. For example, if all numbered items are addressed, but the responses are one-word responses, such as yes, no, maybe, etc., the item does not automatically receive a minimum score of a 7 because it is quote unquote complete. Conversely, if a response is not complete, but the numbered items that are addressed are outstanding, the highest score it can receive is a 6. Next next slide, please. And evaluator comments. So upon producing a score, an evaluator comment is required. We recommend that evaluators leave a comment immediately after a score is determined so that the reasoning is still fresh in the mind. For scores of 9 and 10, no detailed comment is necessarily required. Comments such as great, good job, that type of thing, because you're already saying they've done a great job with that score. An evaluator comment guide has been developed to provide examples of comments that align with the rubric score category criteria. So we're going to provide you with a guide to comments, and those comments are based on the rubric, and you may use those examples in whole, in part, or as a starting point. It's important, please ensure that the comment aligns with the score categories. For example, if the numeric score category is good, a score of a 5 or a 6, do not use a comment example from a category score exemplary or 9 and 10. So they're meant to align with your score. And this is just a tool we wanted to provide to make it easier to leave comments, but you're able to use them or not, up to you. Next slide, please. Evaluator comments are highly valued by applicants and serve as the primary means for an application to improve future grant applications. Please keep in mind that comments will be made available to applicants and are subject to public records requests. Comments should pass the newspaper's test, align with the score category criteria, be constructive and instructive. Consider the information that will be helpful to the applicant. For example, what parts of the response were strong or impressive? What was missing from the response? What questions did the response generate for you? And how could the response be clearer, stronger, or more complete? Thank you. A lot of information was covered there. Please feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A. Um,
Yeah, if you have questions about the rubric or scoring, please put them in the Q&A box. I want to also send the mic over to Paul and Bethany. I know we had another question about reviewing, and so I wanted to give Paul a chance and Bethany to check in on that.
Sounds good. Thanks, Cord, and I appreciate the questions in the chat. So just to clarify, if your organization that you work for is applying in community investment grants, we want to get you into a different RFA pool because that we would consider that a conflict of interest across that. So if inadvertently we have assigned you to the CI, please do note that to Bethany, Taneja, and I. And if you can see the Q&A answers, Taneja and I will reach out and look at getting you into what we call an emergency evaluator pool for another RFA that we are currently evaluating. So just an important note that we wanted to clarify on that. Again, appreciate those questions. So don't feel like you have to sign off because we still want to keep you on our evaluator pool. We just want to get you assigned to a different one for this process. So, thanks, Cord.
Thanks, Paul. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. But you should see down there on your tools along the bottom. And then I think the next section, I'll pass this over to Abraham.
Thanks, Cord. I'm back, and now I'm going to be covering a little bit about what you're going to see in SM Apply. There's going to be some screenshots in the next slides here. So before you can go into SM Apply, we'll have to set you up with an account. And some of you may already have an account, actually. So you may not get an email regarding, oh, we need to set you up. But you will get an email telling you when you can begin your evaluation process. But for those of you who are new to SM Apply or have never been in SM Apply, you will receive an email to set up your account on that link, and that link will ask you for your email address, your name and your first and last name, and an email address, and you'll set up a password. But once you get all that set up and we say, all right, we need you all to log in and start your evaluations, obviously you put in your name, like I said, your email and your password, you'll get into SM Apply. And then this little box on the right, that's a little screenshot. You'll either see something, if you're brand new, you've never been in SM Apply, you'll only see the reviewer button, right? But we do have some applicants who may have applied in some of the other grants, for example, in re-engagement, right? But they have no applications. Their organization has no applications in CI, right? So they may see an applicant button and a reviewer button now. They'll see two buttons. And in some cases, some even it's a little rarer, someone might even see three buttons where they'll see the applicant button and a recommender button, because that's a process we have also where people have to provide letters of support for their grant applicants, and a reviewer button. But when it's time to do our evaluations, you'll click on the reviewer button. That way you can actually see what you'll be evaluating, the applications that were assigned to you. Next screen slide. So once you log in, what you will see is kind of this little dashboard there, that first rectangle on the top right where it says, well, review dashboard. As you can see there, this specific example is for re-engagement, but what you will see, that'll say 2025-2027 Youth Community Investment Grant Applications, what it'll say up there. And that's where you'll see how many grants you've been assigned. So in this case, there's 0 out of 1. In other words, 0 out of 1 have been completed. As you can see, there's a start button there. So that obviously that one has not been evaluated, right? So you would click on that start button, and then on the next screen, which is the next rectangle there below, you'll actually see a list of all the grant application ID numbers, right? Each application has an SMA ID number. For CI, it'll say 2527 CI dash and then a random ID number. You click start. And that's how you actually go to the next screen. But before we do that, something I want to let you know is if you see the little rectangle there with a little circle, kind of a transparent light gray circle there next to the ID number there. So that's kind of gives you a status of where you are in regards to completing your evaluation. Obviously, that clear green right there means you haven't started it. Um, if you've gone in and started to do your evaluation, but you didn't complete it, you saved it, and I'll go over that in a little bit, that circle will turn into a half green circle. So half of it will be green, the other half will be transparent. Then once you complete an evaluation, that circle will just get a check mark. And so you'll know you've completed that one. Next slide. Here's a dual screen that we were talking about, the split screen, which you'll see as an evaluator. And on the left is where you'll actually see the portion of the grant application that you'll be evaluating. But initially, like I said, as Paul said and Bill said, what you will do is kind of get a background, a little bit of background about the grant, right? So for example, in this task specifically, it's called application requirements, but you can see there I have in a box, executive summary, 50 words, and right below in the gray box of that on the left there is how they responded, right? The next one, organization description on the left, and again, they would add cut off there. But you can go scroll up and down. There's a little bar there on the left. You can move the pane. So if you want to say, I want to see the right pane, which is where you'll actually be doing the evaluation, you can stretch it out to the left or you can stretch it out to the right. Um, on the right pane is where you'll be actually interacting with the form, if you will, the evaluation form, right? So initially you'll check off that you've seen this training, right? Or you participated or are on it right now. It'll be posted on our website as well as a link. But in the next few choices, for example, right there, executive summary, you have to match that executive summary title with the title on the left that also says executive summary. And then you check it off. Okay, I reviewed it. And the next, you'll scroll down by going on the scroll bar on the right, pull it down on the right pane, right? And then it'll say organization description. It'll have the same similar check mark. On the left, you'll scroll down so you can read it. Okay, I read it, check mark, so on and so forth. And at the very bottom, you should complete, I believe it is. And once you hit that complete, it takes you to the next page where you actually begin your actual scoring. Uh, Next slide, please. And here's where you'll start doing the scoring. Again, split screen setup. So again, you do the matching of the titles. Now, mind you, this in this specific screenshot, I've already scrolled down. You will see some instructions again. If you scroll up, if I was able to scroll up on this image, right, on the right, you would actually see the rubric up there as well. So you can just scroll up anytime you need to reference a rubric, scroll up, and there it is, and scroll down, right? Or if you'd like, there's also a link to open up another tab to actually see the evaluator materials as well. That'll also be on the right pane. It's just cut off here on this one. But again, same thing. What am I looking at? Evaluation item one, project implementation capacity. I got to find that on the left, evaluation item one, right? The answer is on the bottom. You have a drop down there which says evaluation item one score. You click on that drop down, a series of numbers 1 through 10 pop up. You select what you want. And then the next field there, comment, you leave a comment. Now, if you score a 9 or a 10, it still requires you to leave a comment. So you can go ahead and just write excellent. But that's where you provide your feedback. And just a reminder again, applicants are able to request this information, the comment and the scoring and all of that. And you just kind of go down. You scroll down on the left, scroll down on the right, left, right, complete it. And that's pretty much it. Again, there is a way to save it. If you scroll all the way to the bottom on the right at any given time, there's a save button. I think it's save and edit, or it just says save. I don't recall exactly, but you click on that save button, then you can go ahead, hit the X button, do what you need to do, come back, log back in, and you can go back and whatever you had previously scored will be saved. I believe that's it. Next slide. Yeah. Any questions? And something that's just a reminder, if you do have trouble or technical difficulties, please reach out to Bethany. And also another reminder, the earlier you get started, the easier it is for us to be able to get you set up, right? In other words, I highly recommend you don't wait till the very end. Oh, wait, I have trouble logging in. And then, so please try to avoid that. Makes it easier for everybody.
We don't have any questions in the Q&A, but I will, if we can go to the next slide, I'll talk about how to ask us questions if you think of some later. We have a form where you can submit questions at any time. Just put in your name, email. There's a toggle where you can ask questions about SM Apply if you have a technical issue or a question about how that system works, or you can tag it if it's a question about evaluation, the rubric, or specific application. You can submit your question in the last field and then send that in. We've set this up just so that so some of our staff, as well as the single point of contact, Bethany Moreland, we're all able to see questions that come in on that sheet. When it's an SM Apply issue, it tends to be staff who are fixing it. It also helps that we have everyone have a lot of eyes on it, so we're not relying on one email box to be monitored. So this is one way to get in touch with us. And we encourage you to use this at any point during the evaluation window if you have any problems, any questions, any issues. You can, of course, also email Bethany at any time as well. Just try to reach her directly. Next slide, please. As mentioned here in the chat, we've posted links to it. There are a number of resources we're going to make available to you. There's a page on our website where all this stuff is hosted. We have the rubric guide, how to use the rubric. We have a comment guide with example comments and guidance on how to make comments that align with your scores. We have a recording of this training, or we will have one posted shortly after the training is done. We'll have the slideshow, the slide deck, so you can review it. I have here that we would have responses to evaluator questions. We actually are not, we were potentially going to post a Q&A document there, but in general, what we've realized is that most of the questions are actually technical things, and we're happy to just resolve those. Anything that we need everyone to see or know, we will actually send something out to give you a heads up if there's anything that rises to the level of needing everyone to be aware of it, but meant to take that off. We'll also have the RFA, or the request for applications, posted. So you're welcome to refer to that if you just want to go back to the source of what folks were looking at when they applied. And again, all of these resources are posted on our website at this address, and we'll share out via email following this presentation. We'll share links to all this information. You can see a link there in the chat, and you can also see Bethany Moreland's email address again. That's the Senior Contracting Officer at ODE, who is our single point of contact for this RFA. If we can go to the next slide, please. Evaluator assignment. I think, Paul, I'll pass it to you for this piece.
Thanks, Cord. And as has been said, I just greatly appreciate everybody that is signing on this call for this training. As you might notice, we have over 30 evaluators that are signing into this training. And so want to go over a little bit about evaluator assignment and the communications that you'll find out that you'll be receiving over the next several weeks from us. As everybody's pointed out, Bethany is our single point of contact. You will also see my email, Paul Sell, as well as Tanasia Bishop as the primary outreach on that. So if you are receiving, because we're going to have over 50 evaluators in this evaluator pool, if your email blocks blind copied emails of sorts, just please, or puts it into the junk mail, please do be checking that, because we want to ensure that we're doing timely communications and utilize that function. So some communications to be anticipating in your email is a conflict of interest form that will be coming out from the three of us, primarily Bethany, and you will need to review that and submit that. An important piece about that is we cannot assign applications in your reviewer portal until that conflict of interest is done. So please do try to ensure that that gets done sometime next week. And you simply print it off, you assign it, or you utilize a PDF editor to be able to sign that and get that sent back. Very specific instructions that Bethany will provide on that. We also will be sending an email around your SM Apply Access login. There was a question that I answered in the Q&A. So Cord, you might not have seen it. It kicked over to answer, so apologize for that. But is SM Apply new this year? And if you already have an SM Apply account, Abe will be going in and specifically assigning you a reviewer access if you don't have it already. If you do not have an SM Apply account, that's where you can go in and sign up to have one. If not, Abe will be coordinating that. So just be aware that that email will be coming out as well. And then evaluator training follow-up and assignment, we will be notifying you. Thanks, Melissa, for putting Tanasia's and my emails in the chat. We'll be notifying you of any follow-up information along with links to this, but also when those assignments have been made in SM Apply for that. Another really important piece is following the evaluation window, which we'll talk about the timeline shortly, is what we call an emergency evaluator pool. There are always things that happen. Sometimes an evaluator is unable to complete their reviews because of some sort of emergency or other work-related thing. And so we established what's called an emergency evaluator pool. You can see the link there. It says, please sign up. And what that is if you are available after that evaluation window to be a part of that pool to be randomly assigned on cleanup. It might be that you review a question in an application, or you might review an application that was unable to be completed during the evaluation window. So again, if you can sign that up, I'm assuming that that'll be put into the chat as well. That link, we'll also be sending that out as we are getting close to assigning folks within that. Next slide, please. And then the last thing is just the approximate timeline. This is subject to change, but right now we are anticipating, well, obviously we're doing the evaluator training right now. Over the course of the next week or so, we'll have the conflict of interest form submission email being sent out. Our evaluator window is anticipated to start July 28th or 29th, and then that would be completed 3 weeks later, which would be August 18th. We will verify that once we get everything assigned in that and cleared through MQs, our minimum qualification process prior to leading to that. That finalization of evaluations window, that's when that emergency evaluator pool will be critical for us, because that's when we see that sometimes some applications were not able to be completed within that. So that's the estimated time that we would be contacting you for that emergency evaluator pool. And then lastly, you'll be receiving emails from Tanasia and I throughout the course, just to remind you, giving you some key dates and times throughout, just to kind of notify you when things are happening within that. All right. Any questions, Cord? I haven't been looking at the Q&A on that piece.
I don't see any new questions. I think maybe something that we've said this in some of the others, but I think I'd add this on, you're mentioning the emergency evaluator pool. If you, in the process of even right now, realize you cannot do this, or if during the process you say, I have an emergency, I can't finish this, just please get in touch with Bethany or Paul as soon as you can. You can email directly for something like that and let us know, because the more quickly we know that someone's going to have a challenge completing their reviews, then we're able to reassign them and react accordingly. So please don't hesitate to let us know if you run into that kind of problem.
Thanks, Cord. And case in point of why we have Bethany helping us with this process, I misspoke one piece. We do not assign a single question for you to review. You would be reviewing the whole application if you're in that emergency pool. So I appreciate that Bethany did that behind the scenes, but I'll admit Bethany called me out. So thank you, Bethany, for catching that error on that. All right, Cord, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, thanks, Paul. Go to the next slide. I'll share a few final thoughts, and then that'll be the end of the formal presentation, and we'll actually answer any questions. If you want to stick around, you can turn your mic on. But final thoughts here. So the rubric is your friend. Please trust the rubric. It serves to provide the final justification for the scores that you give. And using the rubric consistently will minimize a variety of biases and helps to ensure that all applications are treated equitably and fairly. On that note, when we talk about quality, something we want to make sure that we emphasize is that quality is about the expertise or the knowledge or ability that's demonstrated in the answer. It's not meant to address writing quality, style, grammar. It's really about the content and how it relates to the work at hand. So, again, we really want to emphasize this is not, a writing contest, and we don't want you as a reviewer to feel like you have to score something poorly because of the writing quality. We know a lot of organizations do amazing work, but don't necessarily have professional grant writers. And so we really want you to look at, when you're looking at quality, what it is that they propose to do and what kind of expertise, experience, capacity they're demonstrating in these answers. If you have questions, again, please use our evaluator support form, and you can, of course, get in contact with Bethany at any time. And if we go to the next slide, my last thought is thank you. Again, we can't adequately express how important you are to this process. We can't do it without you. So thanks for your time today. Thanks for being a volunteer in this process. And that concludes the presentation. I see something in the Q&A, which I'll just quickly answer. So is the emergency pool dates only for community investments? And no, I believe we're actually going to have similar for all three RFAs. I know those dates are different, and Paul, you might be able to comment on that.
Yes, actually, so that form is a general form for it. So you will select which RFA you're able to be an emergency evaluator for. So yeah, we have them in all of the RFAs. I was just typing that answer, but it's probably easier to answer verbally.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I apologize. I actually have to hop off to another meeting now. But if my colleagues want to stick around, if you have any other questions, I'll leave it to you all. Otherwise, we again really appreciate your time today and being part of this training and this process.